Okay, first off, sit down, shut up, and breathe. No, Melee 3.0 is not going to be the death of all Melee in Warframe. It's simply the next step that Melee has kind of desperately needed for the past few years. Let's face it guys, Melee 2.0 was really cool when it first came out, but its age is really starting to show. At least 80% of Melee stances aren't really that good, if not they're just plain terrible, or just plain not used at all. And in most cases, people only want or need a melee stance just for the mod capacity for said melee weapon. Channeling was good on paper, but the payoff is so not worth it, the energy consumption is miserable, and it just kind of makes sense why no one ever uses it. And then there's the simple fact that if it's not a long weapon that can get any kind of benefits from prime reach, people just tend not to ever use it. So fists, claws, long swords, and anything that doesn't reach 10 miles away you don't really ever see in the game at this point. Why? Because this is a game where you have to kill mobs of enemies, where you need to literally sweep enemies away in order to get the most efficient DPS. But when it comes to anything that isn't a polearm, whip, or greatsword, it's just pretty much not relevant in the game anymore. Warframe is a game that simply needs weapons and abilities that can clear multiple enemies at once. Single target based abilities and weapons just don't really cut it anymore. And that's just simply because hordes of enemies are growing, we have to fight more and more enemies as we progress through the star chart and so on. And if you have a gun or a melee weapon that's just only hitting one thing at a time, it's kinda hard to not get overwhelmed by everything. That's why the best weapons in the game tend to be anything that's explosive based or just does a large chain attack like the Amprax or the Torrid or whatever. Warframe isn't a game like, say, MapleStory, where single target attacks are actually pretty useful for things like bosses, because in Warframe, bosses are total pushovers that most people can one or two shot. And 9 out of 10 times, people are going to be fighting said bosses with primary and secondary weapons. Usually melee weapons aren't even ever used for bosses because they don't do enough damage. In fact, in most cases in this game, unless it's like something that kind of just ran up to you, or if you happen to run up to it, there's really no reason to ever use your melee weapon exclusively anymore. Take for example, if you had to pick between the Atarax or the Amprax, wow, those sound really similar actually. No ribbons involved, which one would you think you would actually want to take into, say, a Wave 6 Onslaught? It's the Amprax if you didn't know the right answer. Now, I know I'm going to get a bunch of people that's saying, well, just use Maiming Strike Atarax. Well, that's kind of the whole point of why Melee 3.0 is going to be a thing, because, let's face it, Maiming Strike Atarax is the best melee weapon in the game, because it has all the check marks. It has long reach, fast, and does a crap ton of critical damage. And that's why we usually only see Ataraxes throughout the entire endgame of Warframe. Endgame meaning high level missions to me. And that's what I'm trying to get at when I say that Melee 3.0 was desperately needed, or is desperately needed. There's only 1, 2, or 3 really effective endgame melee weapons, because they hit hard and hit a lot. What I'm hoping DE does with Melee 3.0 is that they make all the weapons, or if not all the weapons, most of the melee weapons actually have a chance in endgame content. They need to hit multiple enemies and hit hard. I know, I'm not saying a Skana should have a nuclear bomb attached to it, but we need more weapons to not hit like wet noodles. Because the way Melee 2.0 works, the way our current melee system works now is that, really, if it's not an Atarax with Maiming Strike, or if it's not a Zal with Prime Reach, there's no point to using melee in this game. In fact, if melee was taken out of this game altogether right now, most people's gameplay would not change at all. Except people who exclusively use Maiming Strike Atarax macro keys, but we don't talk about them. Now of course, I'm not saying DE needs to just remove melee altogether, that'd be stupid. But what I am saying is that Melee 3.0 is going to probably be DE's borderline last, if not near last chance to keep melee relevant in this game. Because, like I said before, the current damage system for melee is just going more and more obsolete. So here's my 2 cents on what Melee 3.0 should really focus on. First off, is just a general buff to everything. Yes, this includes daggers, whips even, anything that doesn't have at least 150 damage of something. It's just simply the new fact that if it doesn't have at least that much damage, it's useless, it's mastery fodder, no one's going to use it. And it's just going to further push the need for Riven mods, which is going to further increase the price for said Riven mods. Now, I'm not saying every single melee weapon in the game should have, again, a nuclear bomb strapped to it. I'm just saying if we had to buff all the melee weapons on their base damage, we're going to need at least a 3 to 4 times damage buff, give or take. Because 3 to 4 times damage is roughly how much damage a melee weapon will accumulate after hitting a bunch of enemies a bunch of times with the combo meter. Secondly, yes, definitely make walls physical to melee weapons. Hitting stuff through walls is a stupid mechanic that should stay in Dark Souls. And yes, and this is what everyone's going to disagree with, yes, make reach scale based on the melee weapon. No more Goku power poles or elastic whips. Weapons that need prime reach should be exclusive to long swords, daggers, fists, anything that has miserable reach to begin with. Weapons that don't need prime reach are whips, pole arms, and great swords, and anything else that can poke someone's butt from 10 miles away. Now, I'm not saying make it completely nullified by reach, but just make it scale based on which weapon needs it more. Now, these things are just nitpicks, but if you're going to remove channeling, you got to do something with Life Strike. I'm talking to DE here. If channeling is going to be removed from the game, or whatever it is you guys are doing, then Life Strike needs to stay possible. Health pizzas and healing sentinels and the whole operator cheese thing, that only works so well. Life Strike is like one of the only efficient ways Warframes with a non-innate heal can survive in this game at this point. So, one way or another, you gotta keep Life Strike alive. Next, if the combo meter is going to affect this apparent heavy charge attack that they're going to be putting in, said heavy charge attack needs to hit hard. And this is where I borderline say, yes, hit as hard as if you had a nuclear bomb strapped to your weapon, because if that heavy attack doesn't do anything, it's like if it doesn't do significant damage, we're just going to have channeling 2.0, aka no one's going to use it. I think said charge attack should probably have like a boosted range meter on it too. That way at the very least you can save up the charge attack and at least hit a good mob of enemies at a time. I don't know how it's going to work. They haven't really said too much about how that was going to handle. They just need to make that charge attack worth using. Give it boosted range, give it boosted damage, just the works. I don't care how, just make it to where people will actually use it instead of channeling. And lastly, the ground slam thing is pretty cool. I don't really care too much about it just because it's kind of, I don't see myself really going to be exclusively using it for anything besides looking cool. But if anything at all, while you're directing your ground slam, I think they should add some evasion frames or something along that line. Because I can already see myself getting blown up by bombards trying to aim said directional ground slam. So yeah, that'd be nice. So yeah, that's my take on the whole thing. No, Maiming Strike is not dead, you just can't cheese with it anymore. Yes, everything is still subject to change. And yes, a lot of people are going to be pissed about all of this. And you know what? That's your fault for playing the game in one exclusive way. And I know a lot of you do that. I've gotten plenty of comments telling me about how they quit the game because they changed one weapon or one Warframe. No, this update is not going to please everyone. It's definitely going to piss off a lot of people, and that's simply just the way a game that's still in beta works. And yes, this game is still in beta. People need to remember that Warframe may feel like a AAA game, but it's still, in the end, an indie game at heart. We're still working with things that are probably going to get changed over the years. A new melee system, new damage system, new weapon types, that's all stuff that we can probably still expect in the future. Probably for the next few years, actually. So, all I gotta say with this is, stop panicking over every little thing that happens and be willing and ready to change your playstyle or leave, because you're only going to be torturing yourself afterwards. Anyway, that's my whole spiel. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Do you hate this new update? Are you going to look forward to it somewhere in the middle? You all know who I am. I'll catch you all later.